Good evening and welcome to Nerds and Night Gaming, back from our little break. As always, I'm figther DJ, joined by
Fire47
and Shuri.
Okay, you want to retry that? No, I'm kidding. Anyway, yes, we finally get a show up. It's technically still May when we're recording this, so we're within our 2 shows a month rule, especially with the summer coming up and the general sort of lull and stuff that matters. We did have a couple big events going on. That's part of the reason why we had such a break as well. So we'll kind of recap all of them. First, our usual shout-outs for your food fans out there. Go check out Shamrock's Bar and Grill off Veterans Memorial Parkway in St. Peters. If you're down in the Arnold, Missouri area and you're looking for games we don't have, check out Bodoc's Games. And for our friends out in New York, just because I said to give them a couple shout-outs again, is Pastime Legends and Day Street Games. So let's move on and start the show proper. Just kind of get into it tonight. Everybody got their materials ready to go?
Yep, should be ready.
It's a podcast, at least. So you have to vocalize. Shuri, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
There you go. There you go. She can talk. Oh, anyway.
There were those in high school who didn't know that.
There were. Anyway, so obviously the first event we had recently was the Toy Man Toy Show. Came and went, earlier this month. Pretty good show. Another show where I did a lot more selling to other vendors than users, but hey, it works.
It still worked out, and it was nice because we had a little bit of extra help on hand today.
Yeah, our good friend May came up and helped us out, which was great, having not only the extra pair of hands and the extra car space. She also had a lot of rare My Little Ponies, which she was able to sell a couple and make herself some money, so that's always good.
Yep.
Elisa came out and visited.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, Shuri, came out and visited and said hi and brought the littlest of the monkey children with her.
Yeah, it was funny. I got a good pic of just all you guys standing together. It's pretty cute.
Yes. Lucas very, very much enjoyed his time out at the toy show. He liked hanging out at DJ's booth playing the pinball games that DJ was supposed to be selling.
Right.
Advertisement.
We tried. But nobody likes tabletop pinball anymore. You freaking
Lucas.
Nazis. No. But we did do did have some interesting things we picked up after the show. Big Star Wars VHS stand-up display still in its box. Classic Super Nintendo display featuring Mario riding Yoshi. All for retail businesses. So pretty cool rare stock items.
Yeah.
But all in all, it was a good toy show. And then also we had the, anime convention? Which one was it, Shuri?
Anime St. Louis.
Okay. And that's came and went a couple weeks back. We'll save that for a little bit later. We'll kind of keep it in the video game realm for right now, and then I'll have you and Fireheart sort of recap, because you guys were there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have class. So, no, I'm kidding. Actually, I shouldn't say that, because Mark, our good buddy who runs Toys of Our Youth, he vends out there, and so does a couple other people we know, so I really can't hound on it too much.
No, you can't.
Well, I can, but
I need to figure out the guy's name, but whoever is the big DVD guy from Toy Show was there too, and I got a pretty sweet, I want to say it was Cypher from Final Fantasy VIII figure from him.
Nice. Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting if true. Anyway, let's move on here and take a look at some, we kind of know where we're going this summer with games, obviously, with it being going into June. There's only a couple other real big releases left, but then we hit the summer lull of good titles. We've recently picked up a bunch over this last month. Stardew Valley was a big one, and I played a little more with May, actually, because she liked those kind of games. It's farm sim. It's supposed to be the spiritual successor to what Harvest Moon started out as.
Yeah.
And taken a little more seriously. You build up relationships with people in the area while you're working to build and improve your farm. I hate games with scrolling text, so I kind of skip a lot of the text and not pay attention. So I'm going to give it a real try later.
I was going to say, and that's what people are probably going to flack you for. But the thing, I tried it a little while back. I went ahead and grabbed it when I had some money from off of the PSN store.
Yeah.
Instead of the physical copy that you got. But the thing I didn't like about it for the longest time when I was playing it was how it apparently has this energy limit that limits what you can do a day. And apparently there's ways you can upgrade that, but
right, but
I hate having things stop me from being able to do what I want.
But it was supposed to be thrown in for realism. It was supposed to be the idea that, you work the land all day or deal with people all day, you're going to be tired. I get it.
I get the realism factor of it, but at the same time, at the very least, I wish it wasn't as harsh for even some or have it scaled where some of the smaller things weren't as taxing, because simply like watering a single patch of flowers took out a chunk of your stamina. So then half your day's gone.
Right. I get what you're saying, and that's definitely true and does kind of suck. But we'll see where that goes going forward. So
yeah,
a pretty good game. I'm going to give it a more in-depth playthrough later. So we'll move on to the next one we picked up. Actually, I'll save the next one on our list for last, 'cause that's the one that we've all played. So I get all of ours opinion on that one. Then how do I pronounce this one I picked up for the Switch?
I believe it's Disgaea.
Disgaea 5.
Yeah, it's a long time series, but I never got into it. Never got the chance to.
I don't know how you couldn't. I don't know how either of you couldn't. It's so simple to play. There's a lot of complex game mechanics though that you can learn if you're really big into the strategy side, with characters combining to form weapons for other characters, little guys you can throw that explode. It's 3/4 view strategy game like Final Fantasy Tactics. A lot of fun, a lot of goofy dialogue built around crazy characters, and definitely seems like they're making fun of certain anime and Japanese game tropes, which is always a welcome thing for me because it's kind of needling the hipsters a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is, something I live for.
No, I just never got the chance to try it. I've always heard of the series name, get thrown around in like RPG circles, but never got the chance to try it. But now that I've seen you get into it, I might get the chance to at some point.
Right, and I like that it seems very well suited for the Switch.
Yeah.
That was my worry, is they were going to be in such a mad rush to port over other games, because this is ostensibly a port. It came out on other systems.
Has it? I thought this was
Yes. New. No, it's not that new. This is an enhanced edition, all the DLC. I believe it was a PS3 game at last outing, but they're picking smart games to port over.
Right.
Right. And you saw a little bit of it too, didn't you, Shuri?
I don't remember seeing it, although with some of the anime tropes, it makes me think of the one I have for my 3DS that I've had forever, that Lord of Magna RPG.
Yeah. That one's definitely a lot of that. It plays it the same way, where you move people around a map and you have limited movement, and then you have to be in range to do certain attacks. So if you're able to handle that game, you should be able to handle Disgaea pretty easily. So, yeah, pretty good game there. Then another one I had to pick up for nostalgia's sake. Do you have something to throw in there?
I was going to say, to keep on the tactical RPG trend, I was going to go into Fire Emblem for a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead. Knock yourself out. You big girl.
I picked up he picked up Fire
Who picked it? Sorry. Who picked it up?
Slip there.
The good people at Nerds and Night Gaming
picked up Fire Emblem Echoes for me, and I've been playing that.
Wait, for you? No. Let me correct his very, very trying to set legal precedence entrance there. I bought it for him to play, telling him it's still mine, so that I can, at some point, not feel guilty about stealing it back and eventually trading it for other stuff.
Okay.
Probably after he's long since beat it. I know him.
Probably. Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead with your review, sir.
I'm liking what they've done with it. They've actually introduced a lot of changes that were kind of controversial for the series recently, from Awakening and Fates. Things like the marriage system, and then the partnering up where you can have two units fight at the same time against an enemy, which was really broken once you got into it, and could abuse the strategy really well. They got rid of that because this is like a remake of, I want to say, the second Fire Emblem game, which was, 80s, maybe 90s?
Probably.
Way back, was never released.
Who knows?
They remade it,
no one cares.
Remastered it, and brought it back, and some of the changes they've done have been really interesting. Like, definitely my favorite thing has been what they've done with healers. They've given them offensive magic, finally, and one of my strongest healers is quite literally a god in terms of just both offensive and healing.
Makes sense. No, I was just looking. I'm sorry. We were getting a little feedback. I was making sure somebody wasn't hitting a cable.
Sorry. Anyway, but yeah, they have heal at close or at a far distance for farther characters. Heal people up close.
Right.
And shit, and it's a lot of fun.
What about far back? All right, I'll stop. Anyway, going back for nostalgia. Also, the release of Ultra Street Fighter 2: The Final Challengers for the Switch. I got it.
Omega Edition.
Right. So how many more titles can we cram into ostensibly like the 12th remake of the Street Fighter 2 saga? And
Right.
totally worth it if you're a fan of the series. I mean, they always tried to have stats for Street Fighter games. It's never always been in the front of the games, but they've always kind of been there. Some games it's as simple as who gets stunned easier versus how strong their attacks are. A couple of them they try to go full bore with like speed and strength stats. This one's far more, and some characters attack more, some people are slower, some people get dizzy easier. I mean, but they actually made it matter, and that really balances gameplay because they ramped it up. I mean, you play on anything above normal, and you better be good. You can't button mash your way through. The Violent Ken and Evil Ryu editions were okay. They're kind of ha-ha characters. I do like that Violent Ken is a different play style to traditional Ken. Evil Ryu's been in other games before, so you're just kind of used to him.
Yeah.
So it's good. And then one that I picked up and really just got to play for the first time today was the Surge. So
yeah. I hadn't heard anything about this until we were like in store
right
to check things out.
And they really should have advertised because you're riding the heels of a great game to bring tech and fantasy elements back together, and that was Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
There's this craze of
this gameplay mash of some popular titles.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying there's this craze of games that kick your ass, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Like the Dark Souls games. But what I like about this one is, at least playing so far, it's more like the times I've died, I got stupid. I wasn't watching my health. I let myself get mobbed. It's not like the other games in that genre where you just get so bogged down fighting OP characters, you're automatically screwed.
Yeah.
The limb cut system to cut better parts off of enemies is nice. I like how it's not a guarantee. And I also like that you have to take a risk. You can target specific parts of the body and go for uncovered areas and have no chance at getting a new part, or you can attack an armored area that you need and get to the point where you can execute basically a finisher on them and hope you cut it off and get it.
Right.
All the while trying not to die.
Right. For those that haven't heard or don't know the series, it's been described as a mix of, or at least we're seeming to describe it as a mix of Dark Souls and Monster Hunter.
Yeah, kind of a Monster Hunter system too. Only not as built around collecting parts and building new gear. You can straight pull gear off of other enemies. Yeah. That's just straight better gear.
Yeah, you're basically just reusing dead parts.
Right. And then let's get to the last game that we all played, and that's Injustice 2.
Yes.
I think we all agree, decent story.
Yes,
yeah, it was pretty
definitely.
A little predictable. I do like the fact that there was switch-offs you could do between characters during the story mode. There's 2 distinct endings, which is going to be curious to see which one they go with, if they make a 3.
Good. I feel like the good ending could have done a bit more to expand on, like, what everyone else was doing after in the epilogue.
Well, they could have did that with the evil ending too. Not to spoil too much. The story of Injustice, because they did this in the first game, is always going to boil down to Batman v Superman. That's all it is.
Pretty much.
That's all it's ever is. It's always going to be, no matter what the other threat was. I mean, the new threat they were touting through the whole thing, and I won't spoil it too much, was nowhere near the real threat of the final part of the game. I mean, it's still a good story. It was still worth playing. The new characters are better than I expected them to be. They changed old ones up, enough to make them worth playing. You didn't just be like, oh, well, I've already been the Flash. I've already been Green Lantern. I've already been
Aquaman.
Green Arrow. So why bother playing them? No, they're different styles, but there's still that same sort of core feeling. So you could play as them and be just familiar enough. I think the most familiar character was Green Arrow. He kept a lot of his moves.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Flash might be the second closest, I think.
Kinda. They made him less reliant on his speed ability and made him more of a rebound and react character.
Yeah.
This time around, which is really good because if you can use him right, you can go through that whole level or go through his whole fight and not be touched.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen combos be done using Flash, and they are just nuts.
Now there's some cons to this game. One of the things I can't stand, which was one of the things they were touting, is, oh, you earn all this gear all the time like crazy. Well, 3 big problems. One, it's random. So you beat an enemy and you get random gear that's in no way could be no way related to either the character you fought or the character you're playing as.
Yeah.
Second, it's level based, and it's slow level building. So you just have to grind over and over again, and very repetitive fights with the character
per character level grinding.
Right,
by the way.
right. And I would have preferred to see a system where your character's quote unquote level is determined by gear you unlock randomly if they were going to go random. So maybe you keep fighting, and then you could classify different towers, or they call them multiverses in this one, based on, okay, you need to be X gear level to do it. And I know not too many people have played it, but I kind of base it on what they do with WWE Supercard. Your card levels determine your deck strength, and your deck strength then determines what you can do and who you fight to keep you always matched to similarly leveled fighters. In this, instead, you just sit there and you grind over and over and over and over, which also took away some of the cooler effects that were in the first game. Like, there's not as much damage done to costumes. There's just some of the suits and suit changes aren't that great. And then you have all these different color palettes, which was their way of introducing a microtransaction system to, quote-unquote, expand the roster. Now, this part I get, but I still don't necessarily like. There's premium skins that will convert like heroes and villains to different ones. So Supergirl can convert to Power Girl. Captain Cold can convert to Mr. Freeze. Flash can turn into Reverse Flash.
They had like a fully robotic cyborg.
Right, just they call it Grid.
Yeah.
It's an actual comic character. The separation of Cyborg is just his robot form.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all in all, it was a fun game. It was definitely worth playing.
I wonder if Grid was what they were trying to do to Cyborg in that old Teen Titans episode where this one side character for like one episode was trying to make him fully robotic because he believed, like robotics was perfection, essentially.
Probably. That sounds a lot.
It seemed like he was trying to maybe turn Cyborg into Grid.
Probably. But what did you think, Sherry?
As a much more casual gamer, I enjoyed it, but I think that I actually kind of like the first one a little bit better.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is it kind of felt like this one was just over faster?
Yes,
definitely.
The story was definitely over faster, and it felt like it built too much on all the premium skins and the premium this and the level system. And for someone who is a casual gamer who just wants to go through and have a good fun fight, the first one was more enjoyable. I mean, we still have it for the kids, and I have more fun sitting upstairs playing that one.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know we have DLC coming. I know we have the season pass, so I'll reserve full judgment until I see everything coming out. And I just felt like some of the supporting characters in this one weren't as strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And of course,
especially like in story.
Now I'll give them credit.
Yes.
They started this in the first game, so I can't fault them too much. But two other big complaints was Suicide Squad version of the Joker. Oh.
Yeah.
With a terrible voice actor. And
no, I didn't think his voice was bad.
This over-reliance on Harley Quinn as an anti-hero. Now, again, they made that a clear part of that universe in the first game, so it's not like they're retconning anything because of her popularity. But it was just that reminder of how little they care about continuity if they can get a breakaway character. They did the same thing with Mystique in the Marvel Universe. She's basically, by Days of Futures Past, she's basically leading the X-Men. Mystique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just that aggravative point of, oh my God, we've got a breakout character. They've got to automatically be a good guy.
Mm.
No, they don't. But that's a tangent we don't need to get onto right now.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, I think she's been all right. The one thing I would say, though, is at the very least, I wish the story would involve some of these characters more, because Atrocitus showed up for, I believe, literally one fight with Green Lantern.
But that made sense. A lot of what didn't make sense was just how many of these, like, they were reaching really hard for the other villains to mean something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Cheetah.
the only thing that made sense was, Poison Ivy and Harley's fight, which I won't go into too much to not spoil it. But other than that, for all of these villains they had at their disposal, the way they just treated them all like such disposable characters, it was kind of aggravating for the story. So, and I get you can't do too much, but I'm wondering if maybe the quote-unquote story for the next game should feel more like a sandbox thing where you can go to different areas and deal with different side people while working towards a main story that's centered around the main bad guy and maybe a couple of underlings. But then, while you're doing that, there's a report of X person over here, causing trouble, or
They're down at the bank.
Right, they're robbing the bank in Gotham City, but Robin's there trying to stop it. I know that goes against the insurgency deal, but still, just go with me on this. Robin's there trying to stop it, so you team up with him, or you can watch his back, and then that's your chance to fight as Robin, even though the main story character is still whoever. Just thoughts for the next game. We'll see where they go.
I wouldn't want you there on a goof.
Right. So anyway, let's move on from gaming. This should show you how long we've been away. As for Family, originally in our notes had a release date. Now it's out. It just came out, I think, on the 21st, and is now, I mean, obviously it's Netflix, so they just drop them all at once.
I didn't realize that actually for new shows they put out. That's pretty cool.
Yes and no. I think that it's cool for some. It's a personal preference thing. I think long term it's going to hurt Netflix more than it helps. Amazon has gotten to the point where they're doing weekly drops of episodes because it keeps the engagement up.
Right.
You can lose a lot of engagement, and if you're going to even flirt with the idea of commercials, you need engagement.
Excuse me. Yeah.
That's one smart thing WWE Network does is for their series shows, they do them a week or whatever at a time because they have advertisements. And advertisements are going to eventually be on all of these platforms, guys. Streaming is the new cable. Started with no commercials and being relatively lawless. Sooner or later, there's going to be commercials. There's going to be standards and practices. You're going to stop seeing as much stuff that you don't see on regular TV. Just get used to it.
Does Netflix not have starting ads?
Netflix doesn't have ads currently, but I know that they're...
Wait. Let's be clear. They have ads in the sense that every now and then they advertise one of their own programs.
That's true. They will kind of spotlight one of their own programs.
But they haven't resorted to selling actual ad space yet. So they haven't.
But you're right that eventually that's likely to happen. I mean, it's unavoidable.
It makes them money.
Because, not only that, you have to fund having all these in-house TV shows. You have to fund the rise in rights fees for the stuff that they have to lease, because what made Netflix streaming so great in the beginning is they picked up a bunch of stuff nobody cared about in syndication anymore. That wasn't getting money in syndication. They were picking it up on the damn cheap, and then that just reignited people's interest in these products. Well, the holding companies for the rights to syndication said, no. You got 53 million people watching this now. It's more popular now than when it was on television. You got to pay us more. And that's when Netflix started saying, all right, well, we'll just let this show go. Well, you got to replace it with something. So they went into debt, and they did. I mean, I remember a couple years back reading they went $200 million in debt just to get Orange is the New Black off the ground.
Yeah.
And that's their most popular thing by far.
That is probably their most popular show.
So that it's a risky model that is going to lead to commercial someday, but that's not even the point. My kind of quick recap, I've seen everything through to the end, but I haven't watched thoroughly in depth every episode. Some of the last episodes I kind of skipped around or had on in the background at work. So, but I know where they're ending. Good season, is about as strong as the first season. I really wish it would have been better than the first season. You kind of need that for these kind of shows. You need at least the first 2 or 3 seasons to just progressively get better, and then you can level out for a while. I'll give it one more season. If it doesn't get any better, it'll probably just fall by the wayside because, some of the jokes were getting a little tired. Now, they did try to ramp up the drama in this season, and those parts worked.
Ooh.
Not always 100% great, but it was enough that I found myself really keeping and watching to see how they continued the more dramatic elements more than I cared about the jokes, because it's all the same ones that were in the first one, and it just sort of got old fast.
Right.
Right. So, but that got me thinking. Obviously, this time of year we have network upfronts that just came to pass, and I'm sure you guys have seen 1,000 of these. But shows that are canceled and renewed for the season. I'm not gonna go through the whole list, but some of the surprising ones that were renewed. 13 Reasons Why, because of all the controversy, and that it's limited subject matter since it's based off books. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because that thing is always on the will they or won't they bubble. Blacklist, since their sequel series got canceled, and Blacklist has been struggling in the ratings. That's another one that's surprising to see it had been renewed.
Wasn't that the one show you really liked for a little while?
Well, yeah, but then that show only made it like 2 seasons with me before I was out.
Uh-huh.
Grey's Anatomy, which we'll get to in a minute. My thoughts on that. Hey, your show Into the Badlands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an okay show, but it doesn't really have a lot to really keep you interested in. Like, its main thing is just combat. Yeah. And even that's like... That's like average Quentin Tarantino at best.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, you could take it or leave it.
All the NCISs got renewed, which is funny because they're about all that's left for the alphabet soup of crime shows that used to exist. And then, so yeah, pretty good lineup that had come back. But some interesting ones got canceled. Two Broke Girls, which was one of CBS's best comedies. And a lot of them you're going to find got canceled for the same reason, cost. Obviously, like I said, Blacklist Redemption got canceled. Chicago Justice, one of the Chicago series, got canceled. One of the Criminal Minds got canceled. A lot of the time travel shows, like Frequency, got canceled. Another one that, and we knew this one got canceled a while ago, Girl Meets World, but that one, for all the groundswell of, oh my God, they're continuing that series. It really only lasted like 4 seasons, I think.
More than I ever heard of.
Right. Last Man Standing, which was Tim Allen's series, which was one of ABC's highest rated shows, got canceled because, he cost too much money. So yeah, a lot of interesting ones got canceled. Son of Zorn got canceled, which is funny because they just got like Funko Pops and merchandise. So I kind of want to buy up all of it I can so that it'll all be rare soon. But that made me think, what shows need to go? Because we've all seen it happen. Show, great first couple seasons, meh, middle seasons, and then reaches the point of, we're still doing this. Like, one of the best examples for me was House. I love the first 3 seasons of House. There are only 3 I ever owned on DVD. And then by about the 4th season, it's like, okay, I get it. We're moving. The medical mystery part's getting old. But please, dear God, don't go too deep into personal lives. Oh, God, we're going too deep into personal lives. And then it just became worse of a train wreck until it died. So I asked you guys, if you even bothered to do your homework for this episode, to come up with a couple shows you felt like have sort of overstayed their welcome. So I will start. First one for me will always be Grey's Anatomy. Not for my joking with you, Cherie, about it being simple shows full of horrible doctors who would have lost their licenses by the end of the first season.
Right.
But more because there are like 2 original main characters left, and I think they're slowly starting to pull the trigger on them being together. And it's like, oh, really, this is what we're doing? Just hanging on too long. It's like, what other ways can you come up with for them to have sex with each other or do something horribly illegal and somehow manage to not get arrested or lose their license? I mean, it's just played out.
And unfortunately, even as a huge fan of Grey's Anatomy, I am not too terribly far behind you. I still have to watch the last season of it because I just am like, yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it. Whereas I used to be, an avid, get the hell off the couch. It's Thursday night. I'm watching my show. Go play your video games.
Right. And
I gotta watch my programs.
Right. She's got to watch her stories.
Hey, it's one of the few shows that I've ever been like that about.
I know. Another one for me is going to seem funny because we pick on them a lot. Fear the Walking Dead. Not The Walking Dead. I still think there's some fuel in that tank to save itself and at least give a proper closure because of how much they've built into it.
Maybe.
But Fear the Walking Dead has just gone off the rails so far, so fast. It's really just shouldn't even really be called anything related to The Walking Dead. It's just another zombie show. And we don't need it.
Yeah, it feels like it's scrambling.
Exactly.
Just to figure out what it wants to do, what it wants to be. It lost what it wants to do. It lost its original goal of oh god, of being the before show.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now it's just the same as the other one, only with worse writing.
Yeah.
And then
majorly worse characters.
And then just funny because I mentioned them in the shows that have been renewed. NCIS, which I love. I watch reruns. I'll watch an all-day USA marathon of that show if I happen to actually be watching the TV. But it just sort of, I love it. But it's like, what more? How many more times can Gibbs almost die? How many friggin' Marines and Navy people are getting murdered out there every day? It's just gotten crazy, and I think it's told a good story. I think it's at a good point now where they can start winding it down, and you sort of see the rise of people filling into different roles. Gibbs moves on. McGee becomes the new Gibbs because Tony's gone. You could do a lot to really start closing that show out. I think now's the time to do it.
Yeah.
So what about you, Brandon? What shows would you get rid of?
Honestly, I was kind of actually thinking Walking Dead itself. Not necessarily end, but get to the end. Like, find a way to wind it down soon.
Right. You want to see closure. You don't think it needs to be canceled. You just think it's time to close it out.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But besides that, the other one is just mainly because of the story that I've heard recently been popping up, the new Powerpuff Girls. Because I don't know if you've heard of this debacle, but apparently one of the writers self-inserted himself into the show as a love interest for Blossom, the main girl.
Yeah.
Which
I gave up. I gave up on Cartoon Network shows a long time ago.
Oh, definitely.
If they're not under the Adult Swim banner.
Yeah, Adult Swim was the one thing that was like, that can save a reboot. Look at
right.
Samurai
If it's
Jack.
not,
But
if
no,
it's
I
not
mean,
Adult
like,
Swim, I don't care.
This is like epitome of
how bad would you want to shoot yourself if they said we're doing Ed, Edd and Eddy again, but we're going to do a new take on it? Right.
I've seen like fan joking mock-ups of it, like with the smooth art style, the shitty cell shading and whatnot, and it makes me cringe so terrible.
Right. Thank God you don't have a doorknob. Like, come home one day and find you hanging from it.
Ugh.
Robin Williams style. Like, they just know they're doing Ed, Edd and Eddy. That'd be the end of it. I mean, come on. Your nickname for years was Lummox from that show. And we drove our mom crazy because he would talk like him.
Oh, yeah. Talk like Ed.
Yeah, do it.
I can't quote a line right now, but...
Just make something up to do that voice. You used to do the voice so well. Yeah, so you had the laugh down.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell your voice has deepened in the intervening years.
Oh, yeah.
But, oh, my God, we used to drive our mother crazy with that.
Yeah, she hated that show.
Is that 3 for you? I can't count.
That's 2, but it's
all right, what's your third?
Not enough on top of my head, but that's what I got.
Incomplete work.
Yep.
Shuddery?
Well, one show that I saw that had new episodes recently on Netflix, and I know you would probably just roll your eyes at me for even having to watch the show to begin with, but I think it had an interesting concept for that type of show to begin with, but it's one of those where you're like, really, we're still doing this? Mm-hmm. It's the, I don't know what it's called now. I don't remember. ABC Family Show Switched at Birth.
I think they just wrapped that up, actually.
They might have, and if they did, thank goodness, because I think after about the second season, because I really liked the first 2 seasons, after about the second season, I was just like, no, really, we're still doing this.
Well,
we took it in some really weird directions.
I'll give it some credit.
I never watched it, but I've heard of it.
Right.
Commercials all the time.
I actually watched a lot of that first 2 seasons with you. It wasn't a bad show. It was sort of a gimmicky presence, and then they really sort of went back and really sort of trampled over it a couple of times, because I think by the series end, you find out pretty much everyone but the white mom had found out at some point during their life that their daughters weren't really their daughters.
Right, and yeah. And once that was revealed for
The dad, the Hispanic dad.
no, the mom.
Yeah.
I got her point of view that she was scared of losing both of her daughters, but once we started going down all the other roads, it was like,
right. And
wait,
like I said,
what?
I think I had read later on that the dad had the white dad had found out or had secretly had a DNA test done and had secretly known for years that, which with the way they had him act is either really good acting or they pulled that right out of their ass when they were running out of ideas. I'm voting option 2.
I would agree because that would be the way that they had him respond to everything. I mean, either that or they were trying to paint him as this really big bigot, which, considering how much he struggled with the deaf culture aspects of Daphne when the series began, that's the only way I can believe any of that.
Right.
But I really just can't. And we went through some of those same story loops of the first it was, it was, oh my gosh, I feel bad. I can't think of her name. Not Daphne, but the other one that was switched.
Right.
It was, her challenges of being the girl who can hear, who dates the deaf guy, and then of course later we have to do the Daphne dates the hearing guy, and all of it. It's like we're running our wheels in circles here.
Right. There was definitely a sort of conveyor belt of just everybody had a station and the belt would just move the storyline down. And so what else do you got? Because, that's enough on that show.
Yeah. Another one that has gone on too long, and part of it, I did not do my homework, but I'd forgotten that you mentioned Grey's Anatomy, so that was on my list.
Right. And I think everybody can agree that, look, if you like the show, you like the show. I made a lot of jokes about it over the years. I get why it lasted so long. I mean, it was just sleazy enough to get that side of people, but presented in a clean enough package where you felt like ABC did a great job marketing that show to make it feel like a classy girls' night thing when really it was trashy romance novels set in a hospital brought to life.
Yeah. For me, I think the point at which I feel like it should have ended was when Derek died. Because they had already lost Yang by that point, and without Yang and Derek in Meredith's life, it just didn't make sense to continue the series. Or maybe just one more of what's life like after all this,
and then be done. Right, that would have been a lot. Well, okay, the logical closer point would have been a lot sooner. But if you were going to go that far, that was your last logical closing point. Now it's just going to be, whatever they do to end, it's going to feel rushed and it's going to feel disingenuous.
Or, I mean, even if it's not rushed, it's going to feel disingenuous. I remember watching a little bit of when they brought the new doctor that knows Owen, and he starts, trying to put the moves on Meredith, and maybe I'm wrong for thinking this, but part of my head went, no, that's McDreamy's girl.
Right, and that was going to be what I think they were hoping would save it, is the curiosity of who she winds up with next. But I still think they're lining her up to go after Justin Chambers' character.
It might be,
and we'll see how that turns out. But did you have any others, or do you want to leave it at that?
The only other one I thought of isn't necessarily one that's still going that I know of, but in the kind of almost in the segue to our next section. I would like to hear someone tell me, and I'm sure neither one of you can, but why in the name of all that is holy in anime did Naruto last as long? I mean, you go through the sections in the store and it's just forever, and I'm like, I don't even like the show.
All right. Personal bias aside, if you can't come up with a good point.
No, it just I
I
feel
know.
like it got dragged on. Like there
'Cause
are
it's
some
just-
really good anime out there that we get like 13 episodes of, and then there is Naruto and Inuyasha and Dragon Ball Z. Hey, where
Dragon
it's
Ball's-
like we should have ended this, and even Sailor Moon.
First off, Dragon Ball Z is nowhere close to Naruto. Second,
I'm
if
just
you don't like,
too
if you
many
don't want,
episodes.
if you don't want too many episodes, you need to be talking about One Piece because that's still going,
True.
Right,
and that's like
One Piece
900.
needs to end. And Dragon Ball Z, I admit they padded their count with, you know,
There were
we're
filler
gonna take
episodes.
we're gonna take 5 episodes to power up to the fight. But the one thing I like about this new series is I understand they take a lot of that out.
Yeah, from what I've
Well,
seen,
and I
they
can say
skip
the
a
same
lot.
thing about Sailor Moon, even the classic Sailor Moon. That's one of the reasons that when people ask me, well, should I watch classic or should I watch Crystal? If you are a brand new Moonie coming in, I always recommend...
First of all, smack yourself.
No. I always recommend Crystal if you have a problem with filler episodes.
You heard it here first. She recommends crystal meth. Anyway,
No. But I recommend Sailor Moon Crystal because it doesn't have the filler episodes. I mean, the original series was 200 episodes long, plus 3
Really?
movies,
Oh.
and a couple holiday specials.
and no dignity.
Excuse me, audience, while I smack DJ.
Uh-huh.
Quick pause.
Anyway.
Y'all just all right. The 4 of you who listen to the podcast, according to download records, which I think is 2 of us in this room, and probably May, so she can hear our voice. I'm just gonna say you heard her threaten to hit me.
No, I did not threaten anything.
She
Now.
promised. She said, "Excuse me," while I hit him. She already admitted to it.
Now, anyway.
Quick, Brandon, give me a black eye so I can blame it on her.
No, I do. I recommend Crystal if you're a fan, especially if you're a fan of manga style art.
Right?
Yeah.
What kind?
So.
Which one again?
Sailor Moon Crystal.
Hath-
He's such a brat. But it's
Can you feel the love?
you can't tell we've been best friends since high school, can you?
Right.
But it happens. It makes me scratch my head, and it's not just Naruto. It is stuff like One Piece and all that. It's
Right,
like,
anime-
why are these
Basically,
keep
animes
going?
that go
And
that
then
go
we
on way
have
too long.
really good, hilarious, funny series like Ouran High School Host Club that only got 23 or so episodes, 20-something episodes,
Well,
and the manga is much longer.
I think what you see there is a classic example of what happens in all TV shows. Easily marketable garbage can last forever. Things with heart and emotion tend to have a short run because you say everything you need to say.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trimming down a book to a TV show, because you gain a lot more substance with a visual art, like a moving visual art over a static visual art. And that's why they always seem
Well,
to be
maybe-
disproportionate.
Maybe that one, but there are some others
There
that
are.
have a lot of story that didn't get told
Well, if you ever read the
in the anime.
if you ever read all the print media version of Dragon Ball Z, there's a lot more to it than you ever saw on TV. They dumbed that down to make it children friendly because it was basically it got turned into an allegory for Superman.
Basically,
Yeah.
and that's why he's so commonly pitted against him.
Right, but let's move on from TV series. And speaking of anime, you guys had the anime convention. So
Right.
at this point, I'm just going to sit back and let you guys talk about highs and lows and the number of people I almost hit with my car.
I can only imagine the number of people you almost hit with your car.
Except for the times that we drove out there with Amber.
Right.
But
Spare you
no,
trouble.
it was Anime St. Louis. It was out at the St. Charles Convention Center. Overall, I'd like to think it was a really good convention. They had some good voice actors. They had some interesting panels. One thing that they did really nicely this year, I know it was kind of planned at the last minute, but the viewing room that they had was a nice place to
Right,
go
that was a very
when you had some downtime between panels.
that was a very good place to just chill at, and
Yeah.
like it was
Yeah, I
quiet.
have
It was dark because it was projector, obviously.
Yeah.
And it was just secluded far enough away that if you needed a space to get away from all the commotion and all the peoples and just chill and just watch something, very good place to go. It could use a little bit more publicity, so it's a little bit easier to find, maybe. But at the same time, that could possibly ruin the aspect that it created.
True. It's kind of a double-edged sword because if it's something they bring back next year, I would hope that they do it in a more planned out way that they could put it at least a little bit more out there.
Or at the very least, just make it a little bit more, like I said, advertised.
Yeah.
Like,
Like
third
maybe
floor
not
room
overly headlined. Oh, look, we're also going to play anime. Just, a little bit more because, like you had told me, it was kind of almost last minute planning, which it was good last minute planning. Some last minute planning is excellent, but it just, if they're going to continue it, which I do hope they do,
right?
It would be beneficial to have a little bit of advertising for it.
Yeah. The panels were pretty good for the ones that I went to. I feel like there weren't that many that really attracted my attention, obviously compared to last year because we had Ruby guests and everything. So
right.
I had a lot of interest last year that I didn't have this one, but the ones I went to were still fun. Cosplay chess, that one was really fun.
I was going to say, I think for you it had less because there was more in the magical girl genre.
Yeah, for voice actors and such.
And there was
And Brandon's just a regular girl.
Right. And there was
From
a
this
lot
voice
for,
of mine, can't you tell?
There was a lot for cosplaying.
That too.
There was stuff.
I mean, they've had that every year, which is awesome.
On your wig styling and different aspects of cosplay. So when you add that, and while you're into cosplay, you're not into the making it yourself and all
I'd
that.
like to. I just don't consider myself to have the talent to.
Well,
or the
either
money.
way, I don't have the talent either. I have to buy my stuff.
Yeah.
But having those be some of the focus of the convention panels, I can see where it would have less appeal to you as a con goer.
Yeah.
For me, as a lover of the magical girl genre, I had a lot of fun going to some of the magical girl panels and finding out about some of the ones that I didn't know about, and going to some of the cosplay panels and a lot of the positivity of, anybody can do this.
Yeah, those are always great.
And then I was really surprised by some of the stuff that, while I don't know if I have the talent to pull it off, but some of the simple things that you can do for the wig styling that came from the Art of Wigs panels.
Yeah.
Which wigs aren't really your thing either, so of
Right.
course that wouldn't interest you.
I avoid those like the plague. I choose short, brown-haired characters.
Right, whereas
Which is funny because he's a blonde.
Wait. You're blonder than I am.
Color blindness strikes again.
Whereas, one of
Damn
my
you,
characters has short blonde hair and I don't. One of my characters has really, really, really long green hair.
Green, blue.
Right, I have, yeah.
You got a rainbow.
I wear a wig for all of my cosplays except two.
Yeah.
And one of them, I have a wig for it depending on what version of the character I want to do.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's enough about that. It sounds like you guys had fun.
I would say there was one panel I did want to talk about.
What's that?
It was my favorite panel, and I don't remember if Brandon attended or not, but it was The Virtue of the Villain. It was actually my favorite panel this year.
I did not, but it sounds like it'd be fun.
Right. I mean, of course, a woman would, want to make sure villains can somehow be virtuous.
No, The Virtue of the Villain was the merit of how a villain adds to a story.
Right.
It was done by a couple of voice actors. I cannot remember either one of their names, and I feel ashamed of myself for that. But
For that?
yes, for that. But
Wow, she sharped back on that.
Shot that down.
She was poised and ready.
She knew.
For
She
that,
knew you were
yes,
waiting.
for that. That only, sir.
exactly.
Good day.
But for
You lose.
For that one, it was the voice actress. The one, of course, I remembered her as is she's done the voice on the new dub for Queen Beryl on Sailor Moon. The male voice actor that did it with her, the one that stands out most in my mind, he is the guy who does the voice of the Joker for all the Lego Batman stuff.
You know that one, Dustin?
What?
You know who that might be?
No.
Can't remember name-wise.
But they had some good question and answer It wasn't simple points as who is your favorite villain. It was, things like how do you feel about knowing about the background of your villain? Do you want him to just be this blind, unknowing, bloodthirsty killer, or do you want to know that he was, abused as a child and give him some sense of humanity in your, to relate to? We talked about things like the age. Do you prefer villains that are older than your main character, than your protagonist, or the same age? That was one I actually personally got to answer because I had mentioned in one of my answers that I was a writer. So we had a conversation about that, and one of the things in thinking about that was interesting, most of the villains that I write are older than my main character in my stories, but the villain that is by far most hated by my readers is the one that's the same age.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, the only thing I could add to that is, like, one of my favorite villains it has such a well-defined, like, personality and part of the story that he's much more of an anti-hero than anything, even though he's, like, the final boss of the game, to the point that you can even play as him like he's a party member in the sequel.
Which game?
The Exilia series, King Gaius.
And I wonder if those things change based on, like, gender and wit and genre lines. Like,
yeah,
what's the difference between what girls like? What's the difference between what guys like? And do you like a villain? Does it make, like, for me, a villain doesn't really matter anything other than how compelling they are to the story, or and that's for movies,
also
and
in
books.
relation to the main character as well.
Right? But when you get into games, it's different. Like, one of my favorite villains is also the one I love to hate on the most. That's Shao Kahn from the Mortal Kombat series, because he was a move spamming dick in every game that he's been in. But you always just love that moment you beat him, and you also always knew he was coming back.
Yeah.
And he was a fever dream of 90s, fake Asian badassness with his outfit and the muscles and everything. He was that perfect mix of kids who grew up watching wrestling in the 80s and then, leftover remnants of Mad Max, which had its influence through video games and movies to this day. So, I mean, I guess really the relation of villain to hero is as much about where they come from in terms of the media as it does what their individual virtue is about older or younger.
Well, and you brought up an interesting point as far as gender of the viewer or the gamer or the user, but one of the points that was discussed was, how does it influence you based on the gender of your villain? What are your expectations of a female villain versus a male villain? And of course, we also discussed all the sexualization of female villains and how they wear less and less and less clothes all the time.
Right. I mean, well, think about it. Everybody hated the main villain of the Gears of War 2, the queen of the of the Locusts, and yet in lists talking about her, like What Culture's list, where they mention her as the most hated, one of their most hated villains. She's actually fully covered, but they still talk about how hot she looked in a creepy way. It's like,
also she's an alien of all things, too.
Right?
Which, I mean, that doesn't mean a lot for video games, but
right?
Still.
Look, I mean, think about Mass Effect. You can bang every alien you want.
Exactly.
All you gotta do is be good at figuring out the right things to say, and then But no, and that's an interesting point, because that's still prevalent even when they try to not sexualize a villain. There's been, and I'll give video games the lonely little do I'll give them about this is, there have been female, antagonists that are sexualized, and there's been a lot that aren't. And even when they try their hardest not to, the fans still take it to that place.
Yeah. It's almost impossible to make it where that won't happen.
Yeah.
But,
and, I mean,
but
it
then
happens,
again, honey,
yes.
not to reveal too much of your personal life, but you're a little bit guilty of that yourself. You've sexualized female villains that you still thought were attractive.
True.
It does come down to the fact that some of it is not looked at, because the reason why is, well, if I'm making something ostensibly marketed to males and I want to make something aesthetically pleasing, then, well, of course, a stereotypical straight female who may be into it isn't going to view it the same way. And that's just how sometimes marketing creates a trap they don't intend to create, where it's like, well, you don't want to say it's not for you because they'll take $1 from anyone, but
True.
it's not for you. You know what I mean? You know, I make a game like Playboy the Game, which existed, that is meant for 13-year-old boys whose parents were dumb enough to buy that for them to see digital boobs.
No,
but you can't bitch about the sexualization because that's what it was for if you're a girl. But a girl like you, with your interests, wouldn't have as much, may still, but there's a less likelihood of a problem because there is probably some part of you with your attraction level that may be sexualizing them as well. You sexualize Cinder.
True.
You've sexualized a few others that I can't think of off the top of my head. It's something that isn't always as black and white as the people that you think are going to be offended by it are going to be.
No, it's not. It's not always black and white. And to go back to what I write, I've had villains of both genders, and yes, if you look at the images that I use, the reference images and everything, the images for females it still falls in that aesthetically pleasing. My very first villain was described as very tan, beautiful. I mean, she was an aesthetically a pleasing female, but again, the most hated villain was not only a villain that was the main closer to the main character's age, the villain was also male.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, I make no bones. I'm a Yuri fiction writer, so I don't have a problem saying that yes, I am guilty of sexualizing female characters on occasion. But it's not something that anybody probably thinks about when they're doing it.
Well, no, I actually disagree. I think a lot of people think about it when they do it. It just goes back to why are they doing it, and where does the fault lie? If you could look up 1,000 jokes about going back to my world, which is video games, about armor bonuses that female armor level 1 starts out with them completely covered, and by level 50 or whatever, they're basically wearing a glorified swimsuit. There was a t-shirt I wanted for a long time that shows, your typical fantasy game heroine in her, basically swimsuit armor, right, with all these arrows all over the bikini parts that just happen to miss all the flesh showing parts. And, she's sitting there with doing the thumbs up
like
wink.
A thumbs up with
right.
It was like that or a basic face.
Right. And it was just, and it was just that whole notion that's what we care about. And the funny thing is, for a certain group of us gamers, and don't get me wrong, it's always nice to see tits. I ain't gonna lie. I'm not gonna be one of those people like, I'm above that. I am not. But right. There is a group of us that I do count myself in that don't care either way. To give you for instance, one of the games that just came out recently that stars a female hero that they really tried hard not to sexualize, and I didn't get that vibe from, was
Aloy.
Yeah, Aloy, or however you say her name.
Aloy from Horizon.
Yeah, Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. And yet she was still a very beautifully rendered character. Like, she was, long red hair, hot girl, but they built her in such a way, and they didn't do it with, like, well, we gotta make her this feminist, almost boy-looking character to get the point across that she's not sexualized.
Like no. Zarya.
Right. She was very feminine looking. She was very,
But she was fit.
Well, that's not even the point. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just saying that they didn't, forgive the term, but it's late here. They didn't have to stereotypically dyke her up to make her more palatable as just a strong female character. I think it's possible.
Right. They didn't make strength automatically equal butch.
Right.
They made strength equal strength.
Right, and she was
being
strong.
Being able to be feminine and strong at the same time.
Right, and that's a step in the right direction with that. And I think we're going to see more games do that because it's one of the few good things to come out of the social justice warriors and the millennials of the world is, for all the stupid things they protest that we all look at them and go, okay, guys, really? There are people who get in and go, well, no, why, does the character need to have huge boobs and a glorified swimsuit top in a game that takes place ostensibly in the middle zone between what would be in the modern era, the North Atlantic and the South states, because you start out in areas that are very cold and you kind of get to warm semi-deserty areas, but still not quite. So it's like, yeah, that makes sense. She's going to have heavy fur clothing on and clothes more designed for function over appearance, and she's herself isn't going to be weak and not.
I mean, especially for the environment the game is set up too.
Right.
They're all very much like Native American style of just like rags and
right.
clothing and such.
And even
leather.
when you take it the step to the person herself, she had moments of being weak and doubtful. She had people that helped her, but it was as much other women as it was men. Maybe not in the physical roles, but most of the character building came from her interactions with the 3 crazy old ladies who ran her tribe.
Right.
And
the one nice one.
Right. And she had a guy love interest somewhat they were building with the captain of the guard from the one city, but it didn't become a dominating point of the game, and they handled it in a way that made sense. They both kept to the fact that duty mattered and what they had to do mattered, and it wasn't really ever this big thing. And I want to see more of that in gaming moving forward with female characters, because it seems like the only other way before that they could desexualize a character was to literally almost make her very void of anything like that. And the modern versions of Tomb Raider, they've done a great job not sexualizing Lara Croft, but the way they sort of hold that in place is she has no interactions that could constitute developing relationships with people, especially men, because that starts to chip away at that because they couldn't figure out how to do it and hold that level of independence and strength.
Yeah.
But I think we talked enough about that topic. We can do a whole show on that, and maybe we will sometime. This is a good conversation, but we're actually over our time mark. So I'm going to skip ahead on a few things here so we can get out of here. On the wrestling thing, I had come up with 5 things WWE really needed to do this summer to fix things, because ever since the quote-unquote superstar shakeup where they traded all the work they were doing on good stars to give their overdose to people they wanted to push, ratings have continually kept breaking their all-time lows because all the investment people put into characters that they were developing, they took a dump on. So I'm just going to run them down real fast. First of all, pick a direction and go in it. That's a big deal. Second, do better PR damage control, because they're really not doing much to say they support their athletes who may be put in compromised positions not by their own hand, and that's starting to make them look very bad. They need better announced teams. They need to have a clear direction on announcing and not have everything be so scripted. They need to realize that Roman Reigns needs an entirely different character refresh, although I'll give them credit, they may very well be going that way. And they need to remake NXT better and stop trying to make it an indie promotion and make it a better ground for developing talent, because so many NXT call-ups just don't go anywhere once they hit the main roster. Or if they do, it takes forever, which makes pretty much all the time they spent in NXT worthless. So that's really all I had for wrestling. We're not really near enough to SummerSlam to start breaking down what shows mean, and there hasn't really been anything good on TV to talk about lately. So let's wrap up tonight in place of retro game talk. We're going to talk about some of the plans for Nerds at Night Season 3 on YouTube.
Hey.
Well, first we do need to check and see what's going on with YouTube's new policy. I know they considered wrestling now wrestling as a whole as non-advertiser friendly content. It's caused trouble for What Culture, like they had to cancel their weekly free live wrestling show because of the ad revenue was, they showed a video that had north of 1 million views and their ad rev was $4 and some change because of it. So it's really crippling. So we're going to check what does, but provided that we're good with doing gaming. First of all, I think the big change for this season is we're actually going to keep a running tally of who's got what wins over what in the different battlefields to declare at the end of the season the champion.
Okay.
And then every week after that will be, defending the title. Some of the projected games I want to do is I want to do WrestleMania 2000 since it's one of the few of the trilogy of great N64 wrestling games we haven't done. We did WCW versus NWO. Kenny and I did No Mercy. So, and what I want to do is I want to have like a best of 3 fights, but one of the fights I want you and I to secretly create the other as real life people. Not, our hyped up wrestling versions, but I want to create Brandon, you're going to create DJ, and we won't see them until it's match time, and then we'll fight it out.
That's not going to entirely hold.
It's going to be hilariously bad, I know. Another one where I want to get Shari back on for is I want to just have a sort of Injustice round-robin tournament.
That could be fun.
Rather than do the usual loser pays, winner stays, we'll actually have a bracket and, everybody plays everybody in a round-robin setup so that we can see who has the better overall record. Just to play... I don't know. Injustice is one of those games where they found a way to be playable by everyone without relying on button mashing.
Yeah, it's very much accessible. It's easy to pick up and learn.
And basically the reason why is almost everybody has the same movements to do moves. And there's that's your winner. So that really helps out a lot. I've thought about doing some of the stuff on the Switch like Mario Kart 8. I definitely want to do some Ultra Street Fighter 2. And a few other games we'll throw in there. And like I said, we'll keep a running tally of who wins and who loses.
I think Mario Kart would be fun.
Yep.
After our Super Mario Kart travesty.
Right.
Oh
Last season, Super Mario Kart 2, where neither one of us got above like 6th place.
Right.
It was terrible greatness. All right, though, but I think that's going to do it for us. We're actually over the hour mark, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up.
Right.
So once again, from Nerds and Night Gaming, I am who the hell am I?
You're DJ.
Wow. It's 11 o'clock at night. All right, leave me alone. I'm Kid Thunder DJ.
I'm Fire 47, believe it or not.
And I am Cherie Von Delirious.
Bye.
Good night.